I don't want to keep bouncing in and out of this issue. So if there's any other questions in the line on North Connects or the related transport issues, just hang on. So we've got one. Are there any others? I just want to sort it a little bit so we don't get...
Well, I'm really actually very disappointed in the fact
quickly,
that...
okay,
I'm very disappointed in the fact that this
argument...
I'm going to have North Connects and the related transport issues run, and then we're going to cut it off so we don't go all night on it. Go.
The fact that I'm really disappointed that that wasn't controlled, I need to express that, and I think everyone else was. But Steve, I really would like to ask you a question, and I am really grateful that you will put a review on the North Connects. So I'm just wondering, is the Labor Party, when you do, if you do come to government, will you put a halt to the project?
If you come to Woonona Road tomorrow, you can talk to the Shadow Roads Minister, Michael Daly. He'll be coming up tomorrow.
So you're not going to answer that question?
I'm going to answer the question. I'm just extending you.
You are going to be the candidate for
I'm just going to extend you an invitation.
Let it go, let it go.
And you're just criticising...
Send her out. Let's hear the speaker.
No, let him go. He hasn't finished answering. Just let him answer.
Tell me why you're not going to stand for us.
Okay. Our position on the North Connects tunnel, we don't want to stop the project. Okay, that's not our position, and it never was. And it never. To people who say that we're trying to stop the project, that's not right. Our motivation with the project is it's got to be safe for everybody. That includes the residents and the people using the tunnel. Okay, so that's our point of departure. This was an unsolicited bid from Transurban. Okay, there was no specification for this bid. They approached the government and they said, we'll build the road tunnel for you, and the government said, great, fantastic, we'll kick in a bit, the feds will kick in a bit.
Was a short question.
So, what the idea of the thinking behind the statement and the inquiry is that it's going to show if there were any shortcuts made within this construction and execution of this road project. If there does turn out that there are shortcuts been made and it's not acceptable, then we will take steps. It's up to Transurban, not the taxpayer, not the residents, to tell us how they're going to fix this and make it right. It's not your problem, it's not the driver's problem, it's Transurban's problem. It's Transurban's problem. All they've done right now is they've tipped a bucket of dirt in the park and kicked...
If you want to jump in, jump up to the mic. Is there anyone else who wants to go in the white and green? And then there is a whole discussion on this tomorrow night in Waitara. Where is it? Where's the discussion tomorrow night? Isn't it?
Tomorrow afternoon.
Tomorrow afternoon discussion. So I'm going to cork this discussion soon, just so we get on with it.
Sorry, just one more on it.
Yeah, quick.
Can I just ask Steve? Are you happy with where the stacks are, or would you like to see them placed elsewhere in the area?
Where?
Right. The thing with the pollution that's coming out of these stacks, the best practice is to filter in tunnel with a 9-kilometre road project. Okay, this is the longest road tunnel in Australia. Okay, the best practice with that is either longitudinal ventilation, or you put in filtration at particular points with jet fans to push it into filtration. They're called electrostatic precipitators. Okay, they pick up about 90% of the pollutants. The rest of the nastiest stuff is actually the PM 2.5 and smaller stuff. That's the stuff that goes very deep inside you and does the most damage. Despite what Duncan Gay said, it's not like wood smoke. It contains lots of nasty carcinogens and other chemicals. The synergy with your body chemistry is enormous. A doctor would be able to explain it better to me. But I actually paid attention when I went to the health forum, and I've actually sat in the houses of the people who are going to have to live with this and had this explained to me in intimate detail. Okay, the stacks have to be moved because the filtration will not filter the PM 2.5 and smaller.
So where do you think they should be?
They should be moved to an area. One of the things that came up during the doctors' forum, the air pollution forum, if you'd have been there, and I know Nat was there. Were you there? No, okay, well I'll tell you what happened. When Transurban, this is really important, when Transurban did their science, they did their modelling for where that tunnel, the stack is going. You know where they did the modelling? Prospect and Linfield. Prospect and Linfield. The night that they released the OAS in front of 1,000 people at Hornsby RSL, I was frightened that the people there were going to kill the Transurban people. It was unbelievable. So they decided that they would commission, these are the doctors from the air pollution doctors, they decided they'd find people who have local weather readings. And it turns out there's a lot of people who are amateur meteorologists who have really incredibly accurate information on weather in that particular area. Well, guess what? It's a low wind area. There's no wind there. And the whole idea behind the tunnel and the dispersal is wind. There is none there. Drive down the highway a few k's. What do you see? Signs saying high wind area.
So you prefer
light
thinking
industrial.
Atherton?
Well, it's got to go. If you look where the Lane Cove tunnel stacks are, they're in a light industrial area.
So that's a yes.
They're
You want them in
a
Atherton.
light industrial area. If that's
Okay, I think we've got to cap it off, mate. Thanks. Okay, one last thing on tunnel.
My name's Peter Georgiadis. I live in Johnson Road, Wahroonga, and I suppose
Well, it's got to be very short because you're not getting this resident. Keep going.
okay, my question is to Matt Keane, is represented from the Liberal Party, who have sanctioned this project. We've got this 9K tunnel, and I have been told that there will be clear warning signs at the entry to the entry portals, advising all truck drivers and other car drivers to wind their windows up and turn their ventilation system to recirculate, so that they do not breathe the filthy air that will be in this tunnel. Highest levels of carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, PM2.5. The safe level of PM2.5 is between 8 and 25 micrograms per cubic metre over a 24-hour period. And this project is going to have something like 500 micrograms per cubic metre. Okay, and you say, well, that's okay because that's only for 15 minutes. But those levels increase exponentially if the traffic slows. So you're relying on 80 kilometres an hour. You and everyone here knows, through experience going through the M5 tunnel, that this project is a recipe for disaster. Absolute disaster. You won't be able to get out of the tunnel, and the air in the tunnel is going to be shocking. Now, all that air is going to come out of the stacks. So what I'm saying, my question to you is what are you going to do to clean the air in the tunnel?
Well, Peter, can I firstly say I know how passionate you are about this project, and for the benefit of the audience, Peter is a proponent of an alternative solution to the tunnel, which involves selling off land and continuing that tunnel, as I understand it.
Well, I'll just explain.
But
the M1 falls downhill. If it's extended by 1k, you can halve the internal emissions and get the portal out of the residential area and the stack out of the residential area. And by halving internal emissions, which is whatever comes out of the stack will be halved as well.
Well, in answer to your question, as I said before, this tunnel has been built and designed to best international standards. I have made a submission on behalf of the issues that my opponent raised with regard to wind. They're right. Steve's right. The original EIS, the modelling taken, the data taken to model the impact on Wahroonga and West Pennant Hills was taken from measuring statements in Prospect and Linfield, hardly analogous with the situation at Wahroonga. That was one of the issues that I raised in my submission on behalf of our community to the EIS. And I remind this audience, I was the only one that bothered to make a submission to raise these issues, which were addressed.
Okay.
Which were addressed by not me, by not the Liberal Party, by the Chief Scientist of New South Wales, who has signed off on this and has said it's safe, it meets World Health Organisation's best practice. And that's why I'll back the science any day of the week.
I'm only cutting you off, Matt, because I think you've answered similarly to an earlier part of a similar question, and so I think we need to move on. So please don't ask another one. I've been handed one that's on the same issue, and then I'm going to move on, which is roads and maritime services, and I've got a written one from Brian Ash, which is a similar issue, which is, if I pick up the point made by John that we are getting more and more cars on the road, it's a band-aid temporary fix in terms of the traffic will come back again. This is a specific question to Matt. What are you doing about the long-term fix? And I can tell you the Pennant Hills Civic Trust, Brian has written so many submissions on this, is the Western Orbital, a second crossing over the Hawkesbury, and like most modern cities in Australia and around the world, a bypass around City, not an M1 that comes in and then goes under and pops you straight out in the middle of the city in Carlingford. What is your response to the long-term fix?
To solve the traffic problem.
Yeah, good.
Well, my solution to the issue of Pennant Hills Road is the one that the experts have put forward. SKM did a report in 2004 and it explored various options to solve the issue of Pennant Hills Road. So let's get this into perspective. We've got 80,000 car movements a day on Pennant Hills Road. Everyone that drives along there knows that it is a nightmare. SKM looked at all the options, including a second crossing of the Hawkesbury, including the old B2, B3 link corridor, including an alignment, the purple option, along Pennant Hills Road. It recommended that the best solution to reduce congestion on Pennant Hills Road was the purple option. That was backed up by a review done in 2007 by Marla Pearlman. Fast forward to today, the government has taken that advice, the advice of experts, quantified experts, and has backed the purple option, the solution under Pennant Hills Road. But it's not the only solution. It's not the only solution. If you want to fix Pennant Hills Road, the tunnel will remove 40,000, up to 40,000 car movements a day off Pennant Hills Road. That's in the SKM study. 5,000 truck movements a day off Pennant Hills Road. But Peter Waite is absolutely right. You know, in the next decade, that will not be, we will need another solution. And the second solution is the second crossing of the Hawkesbury. It is included in the New South Wales long-term plan. It is something that I'm acutely aware of, and I will continue to advocate and fight for a long-term solution for the mess which is Pennant Hills Road.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I'll just note that that's on video. I need to remind you of it in a couple of years' time, maybe when you're Premier. Okay, please, you've been waiting a very long time. I'm sorry to keep you waiting, but I think it was important to get that very big issue, Pennant Hills Road, out. And please, no more questions on the road or the road-related issues. Thank you. Please go. Your name and address.
My name is Victoria. I live in Normanhurst, and thank you to the candidates. It's been very interesting this evening. I've raised my 4 children in Normanhurst.
Get a little bit closer to the mic.
I've raised my 4 kids in Normanhurst through the public primary schools and the high schools, and I've watched how difficult it is for them to get money through the P&Cs, the fundraising and the work that goes behind the scenes with parents. It's come to my attention, my question is for Matt Keane, that you are a supporter of charter schools, I believe. You've publicly stated that.
Yep.
It concerns me that alarms me actually, that more of the public purse would go to either significantly or fully supporting private schools when our public system is already so much, under so much duress. And I'd like to know from you, one, do you still personally support charter schools? Are you actually into using public funds to support the private schools? And secondly, if the Liberal government is returned, is that a policy that your government is going to enact?
Thanks for a great question, Victoria. Education is something very close to my heart. I'm sure it is close to the hearts of every candidate here. And that's why I supported the Gonski reforms, to see more money and resources going into our public school system. We shouldn't have a system in New South Wales where success or quality of education is dependent on your postcode or dependent on your socio-economic background. What should matter is, what government should be doing is making sure that we have a strong and robust public education system, and that's why the New South Wales Baird Liberal government was the first state again to sign up to the Gonski Agreement. But with regard to education, absolutely. I support choice in education because I think parents know what's best for their kids, and I think we should be empowering them to choose the education system which may be tailored to the value set that they hold, may be tailored to the interests of their child. Again, we should be supporting more choice, not less. That's why we want a healthy competition in our education system whilst fully funding and creating a robust public education system.
Steve, you want to respond to that?
Excuse me, my answer wasn't quite, the question wasn't answered correctly, because does your government support, publicly funding private schools? And further, they already
public
support
funding of private
school,
school, absolutely, because we support choice in education, Victoria. This is not a thing that Liberal governments have supported, this is a thing that all governments have supported, choice in education. We support funding Catholic schools, we support funding independent schools, and we'll continue to do that, and I make no apology for supporting choice in education, and I would hope that every candidate here would continue their commitment to the great quality education system that we have and providing more choice and opportunity for everyone.
Thank you.
Look, yeah, thanks. That's a fantastic question. Look, as somebody who's lived in the United States, let me tell you, anyone who teaches in the public education system over there, and you mention charter schools, they'll rip your heart out. Our public schools struggle for things like textbooks. English teachers have to make choices every single year on what course they can teach or what part of the syllabus they can teach based on the number of school books that they have for their kids. So here we go. Matt Keane has said, I think that we should dilute that pile of money even further to provide education, to provide money for charter schools. Adrian Piccoli, the Education Minister, ran a million miles from it. The article's in the Daily Telegraph, all you have to do is Google it. Now, I'd be very, very careful about taking people's word, particularly Matt's, on education.
Don't blame the man.
I'm not defaming here.
And I stood up to him, please.
Hang on, just a moment. This is important. No, this is important. This is important because integrity in politics. Integrity in politics is very important. And when people sign things before an election, we expect them to honour their commitments. All the hoo-ha over Julia Gillard and she lied and all that, well, okay, a lie's a lie if you feel that way. So I have here what's called the Skills Charter for a Better State. Now, this was signed by Matt. Well, he's not, I'm sorry, but you can look at it if you like.
You shut up because...
No, just let him finish. We've just got to get on
I'm
with it.
sorry, but this is important. This is important. When people,
Steve, quickly get on. Don't answer her. Just quickly answer the question. And Leighton wants to say something. I want to move on to the next question.
I'll very quickly read out the points on this, and they're very instructive. It says here, the 5-point plan for TAFE. Invest in services. Government must guarantee TAFE funding. We know that didn't happen. Look after public assets. Ensure TAFE jobs and functions are not contracted out to the private sector. Well, we know that hasn't happened.
I think it's going to take longer than I want, mate.
I've got three. I'll stay on line. Plan long-term to invest in infrastructure for TAFE and ensure a skilled workforce. Back our workers, increase permanent teaching position and invest in teacher training. Govern for the common good, ensure that everyone in New South Wales has affordable access to a TAFE education. Signed by Matt Keane, 3/3/2010.
Thank you, Steve. Leighton,
Of course I back TAFE. I went to TAFE myself. I did my commercial cookery after I finished my chartered accounting qualification because I wanted to learn to TAFE. TAFE has a very important role to play in our education system and I will continue to support it. I'll continue to support TAFE. And let's be clear about the facts here. A New South Wales Liberal government has increased funding for vocational education and training by 11% on what Labor did. So let's put the facts on the table. Let's continue to support TAFE and the important role it plays in our education system, but let's also continue to support choice and let people choose the services and quality education that best meets their needs.
CDP, Christian Democratic Party, is a minor party, so it's not in a position of government. But our policy on education is this. And this is to get around this issue of whether a particular school in a particular area, be it a safe seat or a marginal seat, but CDP policy is to get around the problems of the funding, whether it comes from state or federal or wherever, give every parent an education voucher. And then on the principle of letting water find its own level, then the schools that are good will be patronised, the schools that are not have to pull up their socks.
Thank you. John, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, again, very briefly. I think the question here is what kind of world do you want your children to grow up in? What kind of education do you want not only them to get, but for the people that they will have to live with once they're adults? In a lot of the world, the idea of private education is completely anathema. The public schools are so well funded, so well resourced, that the idea of taking your child away from his or her peers and putting them in some separate, segregated school just doesn't occur to people. And I would simply ask you to think, what kind of country do you want your children to inherit?
Okay, it's now just after 9:30. If anyone wants to leave now, we're not going to think you're rude for exiting. If you'd like to stay and join in our somewhat heated discussion, you can stay. I've had to try and silence a few people so far, so I'm going to continue to do that. There's still a long queue that I'd like to get through, and I'm sure more will join as soon as these guys sit down. So, no side arguments, please. If you want to have a fight, you can just go outside. We'll pretend it's a pub. Okay, please, your name and address and question.
Yes, my name's Graham Bateman, and I live in Pennant Hills and have done for the last 28 years. Thanks, Andrew, and thanks to the Civic Trust for putting on this event tonight, and also thanks very much to the 4 candidates, because without a bit of competition then we can't truly test what the community wants. My question is in relation, it's a sporting related question. I represent quite a number of sporting codes in the area. It's been mentioned by nearly all the candidates the lack of local infrastructure and the rapidly expanding population that we have in specifically our areas here on the rail corridor. There is a severe lack of sporting fields and quality of sporting facilities in our area, and there has been for decades. The overwhelming majority of our community, as evidenced by a petition of more than 6,000 signatories presented to Council, are in support of using the existing sporting fields built on a tip on a small section of an area called Stringybark Ridge. What is each candidate's position on the community having this important asset returned to the community so that our children are properly catered for now and into the future? Your position on that? Are the comments that you're making firsthand, from first-hand knowledge? Have candidates visited the site, and are they aware of the environmental impact assessment and comprehensive study undertaken by the National Parks and Wildlife Service that show that there should be nothing to prohibit this?
Graham, can I just add to your question, because I'm aware of some others that have been emailed through to me. One other way of facilitating the sporting fields area was to open up the Pennant Hills High School, which is mostly gated and doesn't have lights. And I've seen a presentation that says that would cost about $250,000, and Stringybark Creek would cost, I think, about $4 million. And so can I leave your question on the table?
Well, that's not right. What you just said is not right.
Well, sorry, what's the corrective?
Well, the figures you've used, first of all, lighting at Pennant Hills High School will never happen. The neighbours around there have already nominated an existing reluctance to that. So therefore, come 5 o'clock during the middle of winter, when majority of sporting people are wishing to use the ground, it's unusable, it's dangerous. The school itself uses its ground now. There's well over 1,000 kids every day running around on those grass fields. We then impose onto those fields several thousand more feet, then the grounds themselves will be closed again because they're unsafe, which is what happened at the end.
Because they get too much crushed.
Yeah, they became too damaged from overuse, even though they weren't being used by the sporting community on weekends other than cricket. There was a decision made by the principal to deny community use at the end of last year because the grounds had become unsafe for the students. So as a result, the community and the sporting community have paid, and the P&C, we paid a lot of money into the school to try and get them back to a safe standard.
I don't want to waste too much time on that question.
Yeah, but I'm just saying
my question out of yours.
Yeah, $250,000.
Not a safety issue.
Yeah, $250,000 is incorrect and it's not feasible, and $4 million is over the estimates that we have by a factor of 4.
Okay, so can each of the 4 candidates answer the question, what is your view on converting Stringybark Creek, former pony club, into sporting fields? Is that somebody's question?
Well, yeah, the old tip, which was the pony club, existing fields, returning them to the community, and are your comments made from first-hand knowledge, having visited the site, and also are you aware of the findings of the EIPA conducted by National Parks and Wildlife Services?
Okay. Just take your turns.
Very, very quickly, the first 2 parts of your question is no. And no, I haven't been to the site. And no, I haven't read the findings. I've been informed about this issue literally in the last week and a half. I have some concerns where it's located. From OH&S points of view, it's located in a densely wooded area. Bushfire risks and things like that are all, well, I'm just telling you how I feel. You ask me how I feel, you can disagree with me, that's fine. That's fine. I'd like to go and have a look at the site, absolutely.
Well, that's why I've shaken my head.
Yeah.
When you're making those concerns and you haven't visited the site, it was used for 40 years.
I just wanted to explain to you my thinking. I had a look at the site on a Google Earth image, so that's the best I've... Yeah, I've literally found out about this issue. I've literally found out about this issue in the last week and a half. I live in Mount Colah. You know, sometimes you don't get over the top of all the issues in your electorate. It's an important issue because sporting fields and open space are, you know, scarce in Hornsby, where just the topography of this electorate sort of makes it hard. And I understand. Is this going to, my question to you very quickly, is this going to be a private facility, or is this going to be open to the general public any day of the week they can use it? Or
Absolutely. It's going to be returned to its former use. The high school used to use it, the local community used to use it when the pony club wasn't using it.
Yeah, I'm trying to get up to speed on this.
It used to be model air enthusiasts used it during the weekday when the ponies weren't on there.
Okay. Is there alternative sites that could be considered to do? There's none. So you're saying quite clearly there's no other alternative to that site?
Not in this local area, no, there's not.
I've heard...
I really want us to interrogate the candidates, not Graham. I know, that's why I'm trying to cut him off. Okay, next please. Ladies, over to you.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want
Keep going, guys, because we've got 4 answers to get through.
to answer your questions. No, I haven't seen the site. No, I can't speak firsthand. CDP is very concerned about the environment, and assuming that there is no environmental issues where there would be ultimate long-term damage, then I wouldn't have any problem supporting
And loss of wildlife.
the
Community
proposition.
doesn't support that.
Well, assuming it's not overused.
Okay, and Greens.
Yeah, let me start by saying that I think community sporting facilities are incredibly important. I am disturbed tonight, as I always am in politics, at the false dichotomy propositions that get put forward, that we can't have infrastructure in New South Wales unless we privatise the electricity network, that we can't have a sporting field anywhere around here unless we build it at Stringy Bark Ridge. Having said that, I have never been to an Ebola hospital or to a refugee camp, but I still feel qualified to state that I know something about those areas. I know that Stringy Bark Ridge has been degraded, but it is also very central to a large national park, the Barara Valley National Park, in which there are endangered species and creatures that, and trees, vegetation that will regenerate and that requires our protection. A national park is a national park because it's going to be preserved for future generations. If we declare something a national park, we don't just then for convenience say, oh, we're going to carve off this little bit and give it to one of my mates because they made a big donation to the party.
Well, I object to that.
I'm talking, you're not. So we don't just carve bits off national parks, either to give them to private developers, to turn them into sporting facilities, or to do anything else with them. If we excise this bit out of the Barara Valley National Park, then it sets a very dangerous precedent for national parks all over the country. Discover uranium in it, okay, let's dig it up. So the Greens are completely opposed to reversing the protection that the National Parks Authority have given to this park. I would also point out that there was a very carefully worded and very well researched objection that was put in by the Environmental Defender's Office, which states very clearly why we should not turn this into a sporting field.
Graham, can I just hold you? I'll give you a right to reply at the end.